Hi, it's Saoirse, and today I want to talk about Station 11. This was the first book that I read this year, and I actually reached my goal of reading 4 books in the month of January, and I want to continue that every month this year and try to ultimately read 52 books, which I don't think I've ever accomplished in my adult life, so wish me luck with that. But I started off this year with a fiction novel because I kind of felt like I needed an escape. I read a lot of nonfiction, and it's hard for me sometimes to just dive into a world that some author created and really get into it when there's already a lot going on in my own life. You know, sometimes it's easier for me to just stick to the real world and read about things that have actually happened. But I'm really glad that I got into this one because I loved it. And if I do any spoilers, I will say spoilers before I do them. But at the beginning here, I'm not going to spoil anything. I just want to know, has anybody else read this? What did you think? Because I read a lot of reviews that were really, really good. People loved it, and then I read some reviews that were like, oh, this was so boring, nothing happened in this book, blah, blah, blah. And what I have to say to those people is, what are you reading? Like, do you need constant action? Can you not handle, like, a slow burn? Can you not handle character development? Is everything just, like, go, go, go all the time in the books you read? I don't know. You will come to realize that I much prefer character studies and literary novels over action-packed books. That's just me. So let me just read you the back of the book so then you just have an idea, because it's going to be better than my summary. Okay, it says, Kirsten Raymond will never forget the night Arthur Leander, the famous Hollywood actor, had a heart attack on stage during a production of King Lear. That was also the night when a devastating flu pandemic arrived in the city, and within weeks civilization as we know it came to an end. 20 years later, Kirsten moves between the settlements of the altered world with a small troupe of actors and musicians. They call themselves the Traveling Symphony, and they have dedicated themselves to keeping the remnants of art and humanity alive. But when they arrive in St. Deborah by the water, they encounter a violent prophet who will threaten the tiny band's existence. And as the story takes off, moving back and forth in time and vividly depicting life before and after the pandemic, the strange twist of fate that connects them all will be revealed. Okay. So when I read that, first of all, I picked this book up like years ago. I told you I have a lot of books on my shelf that I've just had for years and I haven't read them. So this one stood out to me and I had it on there for a while and finally picked it up this year. I read that and I thought, okay, it's kind of sci-fi. Because it's like a dystopian future novel, which I really, really like. I love all that stuff. You know, 1984, all that. And so, I like the way that different authors are able to imagine a crazy future. And this one, I felt like from the very beginning really gripped by this, what they call the Georgia flu, which came over from the country of Georgia. And this is set in Canada in the beginning. And just the panic that everyone was feeling when people started getting the flu and they realized how fast it was spreading. And like if you were in the hospital, that was it for you. You know, if you were one of the nurses, you were going to get the flu from one of the patients and you're all going to be dead really soon. And that was like, I love that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't love pandemics. But in fiction, it's, I don't know, it's a good plot device. I don't think it was, like, overdone, or it didn't feel like something that I'd heard before. You know, usually it's, like, zombie stuff. You know, it's the end of the world. If there's a sickness or something, it's turning people into zombies. Go ahead, baby. Go ahead. But no, there are no zombies. It comes down to humanity and how we as the human race deal with really scary changes and how we can possibly rebuild ourselves when everything that we know is gone. So I liked the theme of like remembering what the world was like before, and then, you know, suddenly having this appreciation for things that we didn't appreciate before. Like, I like in the inside the cover here it says, "What would you miss?" It's got like a cup of tea. I don't know what that is. Some lights. Oh yeah, there's no electricity anymore. Some oranges. Because, you know, once the flu hit, and people had to start living nomadically, just walking because all the cars ran out of gas, they had nothing anymore. And so the little band of people that started up their traveling symphony, they had their instruments. They didn't have any, you know, they didn't have electric guitars anymore or anything like that, but they had like their violins, and they would go around performing Shakespeare and playing music in these little towns that had started up where people were like living in Walmarts, that sort of thing. And I really like that idea of keeping the arts alive, because I mean that has been an enduring thing over the centuries of human existence. The arts, they're always there. And, you know, sometimes they serve as a distraction from the bad things that are going on. Sometimes they're like a reward for when we're prosperous. And in this novel, I think it was really about hope, keeping hope alive. Because if there are still things that are beautiful in life, then it's worth living, you know, even if we don't have airplanes and television. We've lived without those things before, we can live without them again. So the thing that I really liked about this book was the writing style. And I don't know how to explain it. If you haven't read it, I don't know. It was just beautiful. Like, you know, they always put these quotes on the front of the book, and sometimes they're just really like throwaway comments. But one person said, "Tender and lovely, equal parts page turner and poem." And I agree with that. Like, I didn't understand why I kept turning the pages and like why I was so interested, because it wasn't a ton of action. It was just so beautifully written that I wanted to keep going. Because it's like when you're eating a chocolate bar and you want to keep eating your chocolate bar because it's so tasty. Well, these sentences were like, ooh, I want more of that. Excuse me, Caddy. Yeah, so I really enjoyed like the character of Arthur. I didn't like him as a person, but I enjoyed his story, like his whole part of the story. I didn't so much like Kirsten. I kind of thought, you know, from reading the back that she was going to be the main character, it was going to follow her the whole time, and I'm glad that it really didn't, that it went back in time and talked more about Arthur and his friend Clark, because I think their story was more interesting. And I think that's because they had more character development. We meet Kirsten when she's a little girl in the beginning, and then she's just kind of this hardened, tough girl who's been through a lot because of the flu, and, you know, she's survived being very young when it started and traveling across the country, pretty much, you know, fending for herself till she found the symphony. But she just isn't that interesting. You know, she kind of tries to make her like mysterious. We don't know what happened to her in the first year that she was on the road, but I wasn't fascinated by her. I really like everyday stories of Arthur and his wife. And am I boring? I don't know why that's more interesting to me. It was just the way that Arthur was written, the way that he grew and developed and, you know, became a movie star, and you could tell kind of regretted that. I think it was really well done, because something that I have always struggled with as a writer is character development. It's really easy to write a one-dimensional character. You know, this person is this way, and that's how they've always been, and that's how they're always going to be, and they're going to interact with other characters in a very set way. I like characters who aren't predictable and who change over the course of the novel, but in a way that makes sense, not like, oh, all of a sudden they're a totally different person. No, it's just like subtle little things that the author does to invent this really believable character. So I think it was really well done. I really want to read her other novels. I hope that they're all just as good, because you know when you read a book that's so amazing and then you read another one by the same author and it's not that great. I can think of one right now. I don't think I'll mention it at the moment, but that has happened to me where it was very disappointing. But this was so good, I can't imagine that all her books wouldn't be good. So I want to read one of these quotes that I liked. Let me see, I don't think, yeah, this isn't going to be a spoiler. This character, Clark, he has this museum of things. I mean, this is later in the book, but it's not like a big plot point. If you think this is a spoiler, don't listen, but it's not like a big plot twist. Okay. Clark had always been fond of beautiful objects, and in his present state of mind, all objects were beautiful. He stood by the case and found himself moved by every object he saw there, by the human enterprise each object had required. Consider the snow globe. Consider the mind that invented those miniature storms, the factory worker who turned sheets of plastic into white flakes of snow, the hand that drew the plan for the miniature Severn City, with its church steeple and city hall, the assembly line worker who watched the globe glide past on a conveyor belt somewhere in China. Consider the white gloves on the hands of the woman who inserted the snow globes into boxes, to be packed into larger boxes, crates, shipping containers. Consider the card games played below decks in the evenings on the ship, carrying the containers across the ocean, a hand stubbing out a cigarette in an overflowing ashtray, a haze of blue smoke and dim light, the cadences of a half-dozen languages, united by common profanities, the sailors' dreams of land and women, these men for whom the ocean was a gray line horizon to be traversed in ships the size of overturned skyscrapers. Consider the signature on the shipping manifest when the ship reached port, a signature unlike any other on Earth, the coffee cup in the hand of the driver delivering boxes to the distribution center, the secret hopes of the UPS man carrying boxes of snow globes from there to Severn City Airport. Clark shook the globe and held it up to the light. When he looked through it, the planes were warped and caught in whirling snow. So I just love that paragraph, because this is what I love about literature, is that it opens up the whole world, and not just in a way that you can experience the world, but in a way that you can experience the people of the world. So imagining all those people that came in contact with that snow globe, like, do you ever hold an object and think about where it's been? That's amazing to me. I just really love that she included that in there. And I think that's kind of the spirit of the book, is the whole of the world and all of its people and all of their little struggles adding up to this big picture. I think that's great. That's literature to me. I love that. So I don't think I'm actually going to give any spoilers. I don't know. If you guys want to talk about the ending, tell me in the comments. But I don't really think it's necessary. I really liked that, she included the whole Station 11 comic book. That's what the title comes from. It's a graphic novel. That storyline was very interesting, and I kind of wish that she would write a book, like a whole Station 11 story that's not about somebody reading Station 11, but actually is Station 11. I want to read that story because it was really fascinating. I liked those little parts she added about that. Okay. I'm just rambling. Can you tell that I don't have any notes written down or anything? And I did not have a game plan for talking about this? I just like to, I don't know, just let my thoughts do whatever they want. And if that's not your cup of tea, then you do not have to subscribe. But if you do subscribe, thank you. So I'm just doing this like playing catch-up thing because this was what I read at the beginning of the year. So the next book I read after that was, I'll be gone in the dark. And I will talk about that in the next video. So if you want to pick that up, I don't know when I'm going to post the next video. I don't know, but yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about this. And then I've got a couple more for January to talk about. And I've already finished my first book in February. I am starting, I'll tell you this, I'm starting One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I've never read it before, it's my classic for the month. So if you want to have some kind of like a cool book club with me and read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I'll be trying to finish it by the end of this coming week. And then I'll post something about that. So let me know if you've already read it or if you want to read along. Tell me your thoughts. Okay? Say bye, Caddy. Bye.